sharing some of those with you this afternoon, and you'll have a chance to guess who these stories are about. Now, this story, and let's see if the guilty party can keep a straight face. Here's how the story goes. I wouldn't exactly say that this family member was lazy. We could say this person had a clever or contriving mind. This happened many years ago out at the farm. As you all know, our house was quite large. So when a person had to go to the bathroom, I wonder who it is. So when a person had to go to the bathroom, it was a long way downstairs and outside to the outhouse. Well, this person, who we have no idea who it is, had a really great idea. She thought, why not just crawl out the window and onto the porch roof and out to the outhouse? Well, it worked for quite a while until one day Grandma was outside shelling peas on the porch. Need we say more? Yes, it was Arlene, and this is a story told by Beverly. Arlene, you have her to leave. Okay, Dad, why don't you come on over and start, please?
Because you can take the lens off. Okay, go.
We really should have made him come up here. Gotta get the glasses on just so I can read what I wrote. Okay, you're all here for some reason or another that you've met my mother, and we're here to pay tribute to a lady who has had a long and eventful life. So I thought I would tell you some of the things that have happened through the years. I was told it was a snowy day when the doctor made it, but didn't make it, but Mom was ready to come. And so with the help of an aunt, she made her appearance on November 13th, 1902. It was about 6 miles south of Munich. She was the first child of Joseph and Mary Wengler, and they ended up having 9 more children, which was John, Leo, Edith, Virginia, Ernest, Alfred, Kenneth, Clarence, and Rita. Now, this is where they stole my story about when Aunt Virginia was born, so we don't have to say that one. Okay. Okay, Mom started school in Munich. About the 3rd grade, they moved back to the farm near Banner Township, where she finished the 8th grade. At the country school near there. And then she went on to high school for a while at the Sacred Heart Academy in Fargo, but was sick so much that when she came home, she never went back. Well, she worked as a hired girl for a few different people, but when she went to work for trainers, they encouraged her to go back to school. So after 4 years, she came to Tacoma to finish high school. And she worked for room and board, and the last 2 years, she's worked at the P.C. Parker home, and she became friends with Hilda Dick, who asked her to spend a weekend with her. But Mom, who was worried about how she was going to get to church since they weren't Catholic, well, Hilda said my brother-in-law Chuck would come and get her. Well, because the first year Mom had been there, she'd seen this guy at a Woodman dance drill, and he kind of caught her eye. And she thought this would be the perfect chance to get to meet him. So she said, okay, she'd come. So Chuck came to pick her up, but he never said a word to her. So she figured she had to do something else. So the next weekend, she managed to get an invitation from his sister Eva to spend the weekend. So I guess they must have started talking a little bit anyway. So after graduation, Mom went on to Valley City Teachers College and became a teacher. The first year she taught at the Billings School, and then she taught at the Banner Township School where she went, and she even taught her sister and brother. Now in the meantime, Chuck, or Charlie as we knew him, came around to see Tilly, but we all know how Dad was, didn't do anything really fast. And we still don't know who did the proposing, but finally after 4 years, they got married on June 25th, 1930. Okay, they stole another one of my stories. I said they got married early, but they both had a vote, and how many people go vote before they start on their honeymoon? Well, they started married on a farm northeast of Tacoma. In a couple years, Merlin was born, and of course then came me and Beverly, Jean, Janet, Joseph, and Gary. So there was a house full. Through these years, Mom was pretty busy with us growing up, and she was also busy with her chickens and her turkeys, and she loved gardening and canning and sewing, and she was also active in Homemakers and Alter Society. She was president of both of those at one time or another. She was a 4-H leader and a Cub Scout leader, and she entered a lot of things in the Greene County Fair. See, they steal all my stuff. The day she turned 50, Mom got married, which you guys already know, right? And that was another turning point in her life, because the next summer I got married, and then the grandchildren started to come. She has 16 grandchildren and 17 great-grandchildren, with 3 more on the way. That was also the year that they left the farm and moved to Devil's Lake, and while there she worked in a couple different stores as a sales clerk. They lived in Devil's Lake for 5 years before they moved back to the farm. I get to tell this story. Now, back when Mom was only 12, she learned to drive. She told us it was overlanded. We all wanted to know if it was the Overland Stagecoach, but she assured us it was a car but its steering was on the right side and its headlights were lanterns that hung on the outside. But we know how Mom loves to drive, and she was driving ever since, and she loves to go. And if you would go ask Mom, would you like to go, nobody ever finished saying where, and she was ready. And she got to do a lot of traveling, because with me living in Ohio, she came through all my children's birth, a lot of the events that they were in that was important to them, and things that were going on in their lives. As I said, she had 16 grandchildren, 13 have gotten married, and Mom has made every wedding and danced at every wedding, which you can imagine. That's why she was dancing up here before the beginning of the program. Now, in 1965, my father died, and Mom's life took on another direction. She left the farm and moved to Fargo, where Gary was going to school, and she lived there for 10 years. I don't even think Gary was still out of school yet then, but she decided she had to leave and come back to Devil's Lake. And she's lived here for 17 years, and she's done a lot of traveling in her life, and I'm going to let somebody else tell you about that. But in leaving, I'm going to read this poem that I think is kind of fits my mother. It's called I'm Fine. There's nothing whatsoever the matter with me. I'm just as healthy as I can be. I have arthritis in both my knees, and when I speak with a wheeze. My pulse is weak, my blood is thin, but I'm awfully well for the shape I'm in. My teeth will eventually have to come out. I'm overweight and can't get thin. My diet I hate to think about, but I'm awfully well for the shape I'm in. I think my liver is out of whack, and a terrible pain is in my back. My heart is poor and my side is dim, but I'm awful well for the shape I'm in. I have arch supports for both my feet, or I wouldn't be able to walk down the street. Sleeplessness comes night after night, and in the morning I'm an awful sight. My memory is failing and my head's in a spin, but I'm awful well for the shape I'm in. The moral is, as this unfolds, that for you and me who are getting old, it's better to say, I'm fine with a grin, than to tell everybody of the shape we're in.
Now, if I get the nursery rhyme wrong, will one of you mothers correct me? Old Mother Hubbard went to the cupboard to fetch her doggy a bone. When she got there, her cupboard was bare, and the poor dog had none. Is that how it goes? Okay. We didn't know the last line. Well, this little fella took this nursery rhyme literally, and one day he went out to the yard and he found a huge bone, about an 18-inch bone, and he brought it into the house. And his mother said, "What are you doing with that bone?" And he said, "Well, you said the cupboard was bare, so I brought the poor dog a bone." Who was this compassionate little fella? Any guesses? It was my dad.
To his 6th day of overtime, when an angel appeared and said, "You're doing a lot of fiddling around on this one." And the Lord said, "Have you read the specs on this order? She has to be completely washable, but not plastic, have 180 movable parts, all replaceable, run on black coffee and leftovers, have a lap that completely disappears when she stands up, a kiss that cures anything from a broken leg to a disappointed love affair, and 6 pairs of hands." The angel shook his head slowly and said, "6 pairs of hands? No way. It's not the hands that are causing me trouble," said the Lord. "It's the 3 pairs of eyes that mothers have to have." "That's on the standard model?" asked the angel. And the Lord nodded. "One pair that sees through the closed doors when she asks, 'What are you kids doing in there?' when she already knows the answer. Another in the back of her head that sees what she shouldn't, but what she has to know, and of course a pair of eyes here in front so that she can look at a child when he or she goofs and say, 'I understand, and I love you,' without so much as uttering a word." "Lord," said the angel, touching his sleeve gently, "get some rest, finish up tomorrow." "I can't," said the Lord. "I'm so close to creating something so close to myself. Already I have one who heals herself when she is sick, can feed a family of 8 on a pound of hamburger, and can get a 9-year-old to stand under a shower." The angel circled the model of the mother very slowly and said, "It's too soft," he exclaimed. "But tough," said the Lord excitedly. "You cannot imagine what this mother can do or endure." "Can it think?" asked the angel. "Not only can it think, but it can reason and compromise," said the Creator. Finally, the angel bent over and ran his finger across the cheek. "There's a leak," he pronounced. "I told you you were trying to put too much into this model." "It's not a leak," said the Lord. "It's a tear." "What's that for?" "It's for sadness, joy, disappointment, pain, loneliness, and pride." "You're a genius," said the angel. The Lord looked somber and said, "I didn't put it there. I want to publicly thank my mother for all she's done for me and my family. I really appreciate it very much."
Well, my name is Bruce. I'm the oldest grandchild. I came on the scene in 1953. I'd like to share a couple of stories with Grandma and everybody else, see if Grandma remembers these here. Speaking about bare cupboards, see if you remember this one, Grandma. Remember when you and Grandpa lived in Devil's Lake? I went down to the grocery store and I brought back home a stick of sausage. I don't know how big it was, but it was pretty big because I was only about, 3 years old? So I brought home a stick of sausage because I guess the cupboards were bare, I don't know. But, and I can remember another incident on the farm. This must have been 30 years ago. And I'll try and reenact that here a little bit, see if Grandma remembers it.
Snake! 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 Snake!
Remember that, Grandma? I heard someone screaming, "Snake, snake, snake," and I was in the kitchen, and Grandma comes running out of the living room through the dining room, her arms waving in the air, screaming, "Snake, snake." I went into the hallway and here's a little garden snake curled up on the floor. I can still remember that like it happened yesterday. There's a lot of fond memories I have of Grandma and Grandpa on the farm. And, just too numerous to remember and to mention, but I love you very much.
I'll just say up front that Roger has something written for you too, but he wanted to have that be something that you read personally, so you'll be getting that later on. I want to say a big thanks, Grandma, for being such a special grandma to me over the years, and I thank God for you and the influence and the importance, the impact that you've had in my life. And I sat down and I thought, reflected over the years, and I really have a lot here. I won't be sharing it all with everybody, but I'll share some of it. Some things that I will always remember. And the first thing that came to mind that I know a lot of my cousins will say, quote, amen to, is that I'll always remember your thoughtfulness. Every November for 33 years, Grandma has remembered me on my birthday with a card. She sent cards and gifts, not only on my birthday, but at Christmas time, Easter time, anniversaries. And I just want to thank you for remembering me, for letting me know that I was important to you. And then I'll always remember your involvement in my life. If there was anything special going on, and I know I speak for my cousins as well, Grandma did her best to be there with bells on. She came to our weddings and our graduations and so forth, and she even took a train trip all the way out to Washington to visit Chris and I after we got married. I was going to tell them about our gambling trip in Reno, but she took the bus out to Reno and she had this roll of quarters, you know, they give you on the bus to gamble with. Well, she gave me a quarter and she took a quarter and we put it in the slot machine. We didn't win anything, so we left. That was the extent of our career as high rollers. Another thing I'll always remember, and I've always admired are your skills as a homemaker. I mean, you can sew and you can mend and you can crochet and embroider and cook and clean and can and garden and so on and so on. And you do it with such skill. And you're a master at your craft, and many have benefited from the fruits of your labor. You tried to help me be a better homemaker back in 1968 when you gave me my very first cookbook on my 10th birthday. Grandma gave me a little Betty Crocker cookbook, and I really loved that cookbook, and I still have it today. And I used to read those recipes and look at those pictures of the food, and then I would try it out on my family. Now, I don't know that they're very thankful that you gave me that cookbook, but I sure appreciated it. And then I'll always remember your support and encouragement. I remember the year that you, if I have the story right, I believe that you decided to give each family of granddaughters a sewing machine. Well, I'm one granddaughter who never learned how to sew, and you knew that. So instead you gave me the money that you would have given me for the sewing machine, and I bought a typewriter instead. And what I appreciated was I never felt like you looked down on me or thought less of me because I didn't learn how to sew like some of the others had done. But instead, you supported me and encouraged me in whatever I chose to do. Remember the time in Reno when I sort of tried to teach myself how to crochet? All I learned how to make was a potholder. And Grandma ranted and raved at what a wonderful job I had done. And that encouraged me, and I appreciated that. Then I'll always remember some special holidays together, and I'm only going to mention one in particular, and that's the year that Chris and I came to visit you in San Francisco with Uncle Gary, and instead of having a traditional turkey dinner, we decided to go out for Chinese food. And we had a great Thanksgiving dinner. And then I'll always remember some of the good talks that we've had. The most recent one was just this last spring when you were in Ohio, and I talked to you on the phone, and it was right probably February, March, right before my dad turned 60. And I asked you, what do you think, Grandma? How does it feel to have a son who's going to be 60 years old? And you said that it kind of scared you, because Grandpa Dick was only 63 when he died. So we took some time and we talked about life and death and loss and loneliness and always remembered that about Grandma. And then I'll always remember your fun-loving spirit. I remember visiting you as a little girl when you lived in Fargo. And sometimes I would ride along with you when you would go on errands. And I don't think I ever told you how scared I used to get. She had that big green Chrysler, and she'd pull out on that one-way street by her house, and she would just put that pedal to the metal and go, Granny, go. My left foot, Granny, and I was, I think you missed your calling, Grandma. I really think you should have been a race car driver. And I also still smile when I think of you at your grandchildren's weddings. Now, we all know you always love to dance, but the thing that always stands out in my mind is that when the bride was ready to toss her bouquet, and they said, all single women come to the front. There we go, Grandma, to the front. And in these later years, it took her a little longer to get up there, but there she was, ready to catch the bouquet. And I just went to a wedding recently, and when it was the bouquet toss, I fondly thought of you, and I think I always will. Any wedding I'm at, when it comes to that part of the wedding, I'll remember you. And then finally, I'll always remember and be grateful for your love of family. I always loved to look at your bulletin board that you would have up in the house, because it helped keep me up on the latest of what was going on in the Dick family, because I could look and see the new baby that my cousin just had, or I could look and see my cousin's graduation picture or wedding picture. And it helped me keep informed on the latest family happenings through your bulletin board. And there's still pictures in her spare bedroom, the weddings of her family members and senior pictures, and even the kids' high school graduation pictures still up on her wall. And it's very obvious that your family is important to you, and you're important, very important to us too, Grandma. I love you.
I have a lot of fond memories of Grandma, but I just got on a couple here. Grandma, you taught me how to make pancakes and how to do the two-step. I've forgotten how to do the two-step, but I still know how to make pancakes. Your kindness and lovingness is like a shining star from which we all can look up to. You're one in a million, and I'm honored to be your grandson.
I'm not a public speaker either, and I hope I can get through this, but as you all know by now, that I've been part of this family for close to 40 years, and I'm going to just kind of try to remember some of the different emotions that I've experienced in this family over the past 40 years, all the way from joy to sorrow, and many in between. The first one that comes to mind is kindness. Babysitting my kids when I was in the hospital, having another baby, or actually nurse Roger through the months, the time I was again in the hospital having surgery. The Christmas that our kids had chicken pox, and we had to spend the holiday alone for the very first time. What's the matter here? And she and Grandpa came to Devil's Lake and brought Christmas to us. I'll never forget that. And I remember, too, her sense of fairness. She made a real effort to treat each child, grandchild, or great-grandchild alike when it came to birthdays, weddings, Christmases, or whatever the occasion. I can remember one particular birthday. She gave Bruce a little striped jacket, and there was an identical one there for Roger, even though his birthday was months away. Needless to say, on Roger's birthday, she had a gift for Bruce, too. She never comes empty-handed, maybe a sack of candy or a bunch of bananas, but she always has to bring something. And patience comes to mind next. The thing that stands on my mind was her teaching me how to sew. When I was married, I couldn't sew a straight line, let alone hem a diaper or a dish towel. And I was making a duster for, when I went into the hospital to have Bruce, and we still laugh about that first collar. I ripped that thing off 12 times, but I'll never forget that lesson. And I can still see her sitting in a chair with a grandchild on her lap, reading the same story over and over again. And I can remember her helping Bev with the 4-H sewing project and trying to help her to do it perfectly, and I think that ended up in a corner someplace, I'm not too sure. But I've seen lots of happiness, too, dancing at each one of her grandchildren's weddings, flying to visit kids and relatives, enjoying a family get-together, making wedding plans, baptizing a new grandchild, or going to a first communion. She loved to work in her garden. I can see her out there early in the morning wearing that old floppy straw hat. And along with happiness goes joy, holding a newborn grandchild for the first time. She and Jan danced for joy when Diane was born on Grandpa's birthday. The day Jessie was born, making her a great-grandpa for the first time. And then we got to sneak in a little bit of pride. I can still see the pride on her face the day Gary graduated from medical school. And she experienced the same feelings as each of her grandchildren graduated from high school or college. She's proud of each one's accomplishments, be it a new home, a new job, or whatever. She's always there to offer a word of encouragement or to give advice, which many times was totally ignored. She always takes pride in showing off row after row of newly canned goods on the basement shelves. And of course, there is, sad to say, sorrow, the death of a newborn grandson, the loss of her brothers and sister, and I know her heart broke the day her beloved Charlie died. She has shown fear. The day Merlin fractured his skull and we thought he had died, the uncertainty she felt after her husband had died, not knowing what lay ahead and if she could go on alone. Or after Jean's accident, when we didn't know for days if he would live or die. And one has to admire her fierce sense of independence, driving alone at the age of 90, especially after her ordeal this past winter. She grudgingly accepts help but would sooner do it herself. And lastly, there's a lot of fun. Riding a Charles tricycle, playing the Black Hawk Waltz on the piano, hamming it up on a video, taking Amtrak to Washington to visit Marla and Chris, playing games with grandkids, flying to Denver to join our family to celebrate Kelly and Kim's weddings, and coloring with the great-grandkids. But most of all, she's not afraid to show love. The one emotion she is the most generous with. She gives it away and accepts it freely. That is the one thing we want to return to her today. Happy 90th birthday, Grandma. We all love you.
Next, I need my brother Roger and Rick Altendorf and Terry and Kenny Mike to come up here, please. Come quickly, boys. Stand right here. We have another story to tell. One of your sisters submitted a story about one of you. And we're going to see if we can guess which one this story's about. Shy and quiet was how I had envisioned my brother to be around girls. That theory was proven wrong one Friday night years ago. Some friends and I were driving around town. I knew that my brother and his friend were playing tennis at one of the courts on the other side of town. I wondered how my brother would react to a carload of girls driving by, honking the horn and whistling at them. I knew they wouldn't recognize the car we were driving because it was my friend's parents' new car. Well, much to my surprise, my brother's reaction was quite different than I had ever anticipated. When we drove by honking, my brother hurtled over the tennis net, ripped off his shirt, waved it in the air, and yelled, "Come on back!" And as this sister recalled, he ran after the car for at least 3 or 4 blocks with his tennis racket in hand the whole time. Well, when he came home that night, this particular sister asked him how his tennis game was, or should I say, how was running. Well, he got a funny look on his face and said, "Oh, I knew it was you. I was just playing along with your game." Well, from that time on, I never thought of my brother as the shy, quiet type of guy I had previously been fooled to believe. Did you guys figure out? I couldn't see their faces. Yes, this story was told by Audrey about her brother Rick. Thank you.
game right now. It's called Name That Tune. This is a special tune that's dear to Grandma. And see if anyone can yell it out before she does. This is a world premiere on the bagpipe, by the way. Represents Grandma's life. It's called The Good Old Way. Again, everyone's mentioned that Grandma's gone to everyone's wedding. And at all the weddings that I've gone to, they've always asked me to play these things. And we play a lot of fast dances. And these are some of the dances that she plays, and she probably still will.
Questions about babies. He kept asking how the baby gets out of the mommy's tummy. And they didn't know how to answer his questions. Well, I guess the neighbors were having their neighbor's horse was having a cold, so they took him over there. And he didn't ask any more questions after that. And we were just wondering maybe if this was the spark that led you into medicine. The desire, the search for the answers to such questions. Uncle Gary next is going to share with us some things about his travels with Tilly.
When I first was asked by Marlon to do some form of entertainment for my mother's birthday, I really wasn't quite sure what I was going to do because this woman has done so much for me in my 45 years of life, excuse me. So anyway, I thought, well, maybe I'll do the travels with Tilly. And first I thought about telling everybody about all of our different trips, which I will, because she's been a rascal on these trips. But it all started about 46 years and 3 months ago when she was carrying me from the start. And I want to thank her as a lady of her age, for carrying me through on term, because nowadays most people of that age don't want to have children. So thank you, Mother, for giving me life. So anyway, over the years, I think a lot of the things that I learned from my mother is that, again, as it's been mentioned before, it's the incredible love that she has for all of us here, and that's not just family. It's relatives, it's neighbors. I mean, she's talked about the Brunhams and the Madallans and all these people that she's loved all these years, and you know, all of her family. And today, Mother, you're just getting all that love reflected back to you. I didn't rehearse this, so I'm just trying to think of things as we go here. I think one reason why I've been successful in medicine is also because of my mother. She's one person who has taught me do the right thing the first time, work as hard as you can, and never give up. And I sort of saw that again yesterday. I took her to get her hair fixed, and when she got done, I said, "Would you like to drive the car?" And she said, "Well, of course." So again, she's back at the wheel again, a little shaky, but she's back driving. But all of those different things, it's also the fairness in all of her children. She's treated us all the same. I'd like to think I'm the favorite, but I can't tell. And the same with all the grandchildren. She's always taught me about unconditional love of loving all of her children, all of her grandchildren, and all of her friends, and not expecting anything in return. But anyway, getting onto the travels with Tilly, is she always seemed to be on the go. And there was talk that she was the go-go grandma, and she was. She was just always on the go. After my dad died, she moved to Fargo, and we lived in an apartment for about 5 years while I was going to pharmacy school. In the first couple of years, it was a little tough. She, you know, like a typical widow, felt sorry for herself, and then all of a sudden she snapped around, and away she went. She was going to senior citizens, and I've never seen her stop since. She just goes and goes, always on the airplane, always looking for an excuse to travel. And so that's one of the reasons why I love to take her on little trips. And some of the trips that are probably most memorable are a Hawaii trip. We went there. I sent Arlene and Mom to Hawaii many years ago, and they loved it. And she came back talking about Maui this and Maui that, and I'm sure that if there is such a thing as reincarnation, she must have spent a lot of time on Maui. And then we took a cruise to Alaska, and just watching her, never resting on these cruises. It's, you get up in the morning and you eat, and then you take advantage of everything that's going on, never stopping, eating again, and has to hit all of the entertainment. Not one to miss out on a party. That's my mother. And she danced at those too, I'm sure. Another trip that was very memorable for us was when we went to Europe for 3 weeks. And she kept up with the best of them. And it was the life of the party at most of the evening gatherings. Most people, I think, spent more time laughing at my mother and laughing with her than she provided a lot of entertainment. And one particular time, I remember we were in Rome, and we were at a party, and I think she may have had a glass of wine, I'm not sure. And it's a custom in Rome for the men to pinch the women on the rear. So they went around and they pinched my mother in the rear. She didn't do too much. But I think maybe getting back to the story about who proposed, my mother or my father, that came by, there was a young man who walked by, and she grabbed him and pinched him. So we know who proposed that time. I don't know what she said or what she did, but we're all here because of it. And then we took another cruise to the Caribbean, and that one was kind of a wild one because we kind of walked and rolled for 3 days straight. But still not one to miss a party. We could barely stand, and she had her cane, and she was always going to just not miss that party, and always had to be the center of that entertainment, and she was there. So anyway, Mom, I just wanted to tell you that your partying and traveling days aren't over, because I'm going to take you on a cruise to Mexico. We're going to go to the Mexican Riviera, and now that I know that she's finally ready to travel, she said her ankle's healed, she's waiting for the runway to be fixed in Grand Forks, and I kind of tried to feel her out. I really didn't want to go, so I said, well, we're not going to go. So in about 6 to 8 weeks, we'll be going again, so pack your bags. And I love you very much.
First and foremost, it always rained, but that didn't dampen their spirits. The person who wrote this says, I remember one weekend in particular, we were camping out in Minnesota. There was a beautiful lodge for people who couldn't stand to be in their campers on those long rainy days and nights. The children had a ball playing ping pong. The elders told a few jokes. Anyone remember the song, You Picked a Fine Time to Leave Me, Lucille? We never laughed so hard in all our lives as we did that night. Well, after spending a wonderful rainy weekend, we headed for home, and a few miles into our trip, we stopped at a rest area to stretch our legs. Since there weren't that many chairs available, one of the members of the family brought out the porta potty and sat on it. Well, picture the scene. Out there on the highway, this person sitting on the porta potty almost caused a few accidents because everybody thought he was sitting on it for what it was intended for. So horns were tooting and people were waving, and they had a great time. Any guesses as to who split their sides laughing at one particular joke? And also, who was the one who improvised at the rest area by using the porta potty for a chair? This is another story by your dear sister Beverly. The two families were the Altendorfs and the Gene Dicks, and I guess Gene was the porta potty boy, and Marge, you must have been the one that laughed at the joke. Okay. Well, next up we have something very special. Most families have son-in-laws. Wait a minute. Everyone wanted to stand up quick and do a quick stretch. I've been able to get up and down. Another short story.
Hi, Mom. Happy 90th birthday. Just a few words. I do thank you for your love of family and people. Because of abortion, some individuals didn't get to see what I did when you gave birth to me at Langdon, North Dakota. The many people looking at me through a little window for several days at that hospital. I must have been cute. Look like my mother, I guess. I again want to thank you for the love you had for me as I grew up on the farm. I wouldn't change it for anything. The love you had to keep the family unit together inspired me. I know a lot of things and problems may have happened, but when the chips were down, you were always there. Loving one another in today's world is so important that it prepares you a way for eternal life. I again want to thank you for loving me and my family, and I hope you have a blessed day. With all that.
Okay, as you already know, I can talk and talk and talk. So I'm not going to do that today. There is so much I can say about my grandma that I wrote all mine down and should be receiving that later. I think a lot of the members in our family have done that. Because of the shortness of time, we know you're getting hungry for that cake, right? So I guess what we chose to do, we're going to read some of the other family members' letters that they wrote. This one is from Beverly Altendorf. That's Grandma's daughter right there. The wonderful, I didn't know you guys were that talented. That was great, that tape you did, you and Gerald.
We're at Golden Record.
Okay, well, we'll see if we can find somebody to do that. Okay, this is by Beverly. She entitled this, Seamstress, I'm Not. When I was a child, I always liked playing with my dolls. Of course, they needed new clothes. You had a couple of big drawers in the dining room cupboards, which were full of sewing material. I would go in and spread out a piece of material, lay down the pattern, which I made out of a paper bag, and I'd proceed to cut out my doll's dress. But several weeks later, I would hear you scream when you discovered the big hole in the middle of your material. I knew I was in trouble. Those incidents happened several times, and I was disciplined each time. You'd think I would have learned. When I became older, I was a member of the 4-H club. We had a session on sewing. I had to make a bag to hold dirty laundry. I remember it very well. It was yellow with white bias tape. The bias tape stands out in my memory because it took only, well, a couple of years to put it on. You kept making me rip it out and do it over again. Someone must have invented the ripper especially for me, because I surely did end up using it a lot. Needless to say, I did become a I never did. I almost said I did, Bev. I never did become a seamstress, but thank you for trying to teach me. That was from Beverly, Grandma's daughter. Like I said before, Grandma, I get very teary-eyed. I couldn't even begin to tell you my feelings, and you will read it all later. I'll just give you a big hug and kiss and happy birthday, and I love you.
I'm going to read what Grandma's sister, Aunt Virginia, wrote, and she titled it My Sister Matilda, or Tilly, and she says, I like her nickname. One of my early memories was back in the early 20s after World War I. The government sold war bonds to support the war effort. Our parents did their part and bought some. When the war ended and times were improving, they decided to cash them in and buy a player piano. It was indeed the pride and joy for all of us. One Sunday afternoon, our parents went visiting some relatives, and Sister Tilly got to go along with them, so she took the piano key with her and locked it up so we couldn't play it. We were feeling sad and upset about that, but Brother John thought he might try to get it open. He went out to the garage or the blacksmith shop and brought back a tool to fix it, and lo and behold, he succeeded and it opened. We had a good time pumping the mechanism and playing our favorite rolls of music. After several hours, Brother John locked it up again because it was time for the folks to get home. All went well, and the key returned still in Tilly's possession. We were all kept busy on the farm doing the chores we were capable of doing. We were a large family, so had time to play croquet and baseball with our brothers. I don't remember if Tilly got to pitch or not. I was the young sister at that time, so was out in the field somewhere. The neighborhood had many house parties at that time. Tilly, John, and Leo took their turn also. Edie and I got to play games with them sometimes and even learned to spin the bottle and post office. Tilly went off to high school at Sacred Heart Academy in Fargo, North Dakota, with 3 other girls from Callio. She contracted scarlet fever, which is a contagious disease, and landed in the detention hospital, or pest house, as they were called back then. I remember my mother fixing up a box of goodies, roast duck, and fruit to send to her. I think I was envious. She returned home then, and later went to Nakoma High School, Valley City Teachers College, and taught school a few years. In fact, she was Rita, her youngest sister's first and second grade teacher. Tilly also had experience during the summer working in a cook car with another lady to prepare and serve meals for the men working in the fields. Our dad and 3 other farmers were in partnership with this threshing rig, which consisted of a steam engine, a separator, bundle racks, haulers, a moving grain elevator, and the cook car. They all worked together to get the crops harvested and grain in the bins. There were a few gentlemen friends around visiting our brothers, so we thought, but finally the word was out. There was a new fellow on the horizon, and he would be coming over soon to visit us. Of course, we younger ones were interested, excited, and wondered what this beau or suitor would look like. The suspense was over when this big, gray, beautiful Willis Knight car turned into the yard with a handsome-looking man at the wheel, wearing a hat and a happy smile for all of us. Charlie was his name. They were married on June 25th, 1930.
I'm hearing a lot of wonderful stories about my grandfather, who I didn't get to meet. I was only 2 weeks old when he died. It was my birthday yesterday. Thank you, grandmother, for remembering me. It's her birthday today, but she brings me a present. I'm the same as Margene. There's too many things, Grandma, that I could sit and say. I've got tears in my voice now, and it may be because we're both with child, I don't know. But there's just too many, and I do have a page for your book. And you're a very special lady. This is from Audrey O'Keefe, my cousin, and it's Remember When? Memories from Audrey. So I'm directing these to you. Remember when you helped me sew a 3-piece suit for a 4-H project of mine? We spent many hours together getting the zipper in just right. In addition, the material we used frayed so easily, you had me sew on seam binding for all of the hems. When it came to the 4-H show, I received a 3rd place because they couldn't see what my hems looked like. I can remember how furious you were. You said I should have won 1st place without a doubt. And Audrey, I think I was up there when you were sewing that outfit, and I was trying to sew a pair of pants at the same time. We learned how to use that seam ripper, Beth. We certainly did. Remember when I planned to stay at your house in Fargo for a week? We had a whole list of things to do, and after only 3 days, I became homesick and had to go home. Nice intentions, though. Remember when you met Tom for the first time? You called him Jim, my previous boyfriend, for about the next 3 months. Thank you, Audrey, for sharing those memories with grandmother. We love you, Grandma.
Happy birthday, Matilda. There's a 90 in the middle, and it says Memories, November 13th, 1902 to 1992. And in it, everybody has contributed. There's all kinds of pages and papers of birthday cards and memories, some of which you've heard here today, and thoughts of appreciation. And we hope that you'll enjoy reading the
My 19th birthday. It's just been an awful lot. I don't know. I can't say what I'm speechless. But thank you, Eddie, for coming. Everybody I know here. I'd rather just talk to him like that. Glad you all saved.
No, we don't have to eat here. It's so warm in here.
Cold.
Oh, did you go cold?